I'm not standing for re-election in 2014.
Welcome back. Yesterday, as we told you, Frank Lautenberg, as you said, he will not be running for re-election. The oldest member of his Senate took his name out of contention in 2014. Today, making that announcement official. The popular 89-year-old lawmaker is the last remaining veteran of World War II in the Senate. He's been easily elected 5 times now, and although he announced that he won't run again, still has got plenty of plans for his last 2 years in office. And Andrew, there's a lot of debate as to why he said what he said now. What do you think?
Well, I think in part it was because I asked him on Tuesday, so he waited until today.
It's all about you, Andrew.
But it's all. There were a lot of things that were beginning to work against Frank Lautenberg. He was facing a much more difficult re-election bid next year, with popular Newark Mayor Cory Booker already announcing his intention to run. A few other names have also been floated as possible candidates in that primary. Among them, Congressman Frank Pallone. I spoke with Congressman Pallone about his intentions earlier today. Congressman, we're just a few hours removed from Senator Lautenberg's decision or announcement that he's not going to run. Your thoughts as you heard him basically signal the end of his political career?
Well, it's not the end of his career because he still has 2 more years, and we're going to work very hard to grow the economy and deal with some of the major issues of the day that Senator Lautenberg has always been involved with. But he has a great legacy. I mean, he's been involved with so many issues. I would just mention specifically transportation, you know, and also on the environment, because I worked with him a lot on environmental issues. He's always been a champion to protect the environment. But I would really point out more than anything else that to me he epitomizes the American dream. You know, he grew up from very modest, a poor background really, and he became a financial success, but then he decided to give back by running for the Senate. And he's always been an advocate for the little guy, trying to make sure that there's equal opportunity and that the American dream continues for future generations. So that's something I'll always remember him for.
You have said that you're interested in exploring the possibility of running for that seat. Care to make any headlines today and let us know, make it official?
Well, I am interested in running, but today's Senator Lautenberg's day, so I'm going to leave it at that.
Do you have a time frame in mind for when you would make up your decision?
I just want to say today that I want to talk about the senator. I'm clearly interested in running for the Senate, but today I think we should stick to Senator Lautenberg and his legacy.
Were you surprised by Senator Lautenberg's decision to retire at the end of his term?
I was somewhat surprised, but you know, I also understand it. Look, you know, Senator Lautenberg has always been a stand-up person and in many ways aggressive in trying to pursue his goals. And so, you know, when somebody like him retires, you're a little surprised.
Of course, from a national standpoint, as well as among many New Jersey Democrats, Mayor Cory Booker is viewed as the heir apparent, despite the fact that he's ruffled some feathers by making his intentions known so early and doing so while Lautenberg still hadn't made his intentions known. But there's still going to be a fight for that Senate seat. What might that fight look like? I spoke with the Bergen Record's editorial page editor Alfred Doblin about that earlier today. Alfred, I'm curious what your take is on Lautenberg's decision today. How much of this was just his own personal desire to be done with his time in the Senate, and how much of it was maybe reading the polls and seeing the writing on the wall?
I think, you know, the substance of his decision is not surprising. The timing of it is surprising. And he probably felt a bit prodded by, you know, Mayor Booker's decision to sort of say he had interest in the seat before the seat was technically empty, and then some of the posturing that's been going on by other Democrats in the state that they were looking forward. And I think at the end Lautenberg wanted, you know, to sort of say, look, I'm still the senator, and it's my decision when I'm going to leave. And I guess he felt now was the right moment. But I don't think he was jumping for joy in making this decision.
And if you believe at least what the media reports are from across the state, the inside track for the job now goes to Cory Booker. You always hear, though, that he's not very popular within the Democratic Party in the state of New Jersey or the Democratic machine. How much of an impediment is that for Cory Booker now going forward trying to secure the nomination?
the machine, as it's discussed, has advantages to some point. I mean, Booker, I think, can operate above the machine, and that his ability to raise a lot of money and he has a statewide profile exists. So he doesn't need the 2 or 3 key players within the state of New Jersey to elevate him to star status. He's sort of there on his own. Whether the machine impedes him, whether it sits on his hand, I don't know. I think Booker offers a lot to the National Democratic Party, and there may be some influence from those folks looking at, would a Senator Booker be able to raise millions of dollars for Senate campaigns across the country? Would that be a greater opportunity than, say, a Senator Frank Pallone or a Senator Rush Holt, who have great qualifications as well, but they're not rock stars in that sense. They would not be able to, get Mark Zuckerberg on the phone, and there's a business to running for politics, and it's a fueled business by the ability to raise cash.
And quickly, do you think we see Lautenberg get into the anybody but Booker business, get actively involved in some of these primaries?
I would be surprised if we see it. I don't know if something like that will happen behind the scenes. But I think at the end of the day, Senator Lautenberg's a Democrat. I think when there is one nominee from the Democrats in 2014, whether Frank Lautenberg, is in love with the candidate or not, I think he will support him. I think at the end of the day, he's a Democrat first, and I think he would coalesce behind whoever that candidate is.
All right. I think sometimes in politics we'll extrapolate a little. I don't remember 2 politicians who disliked each other. Or let me say this more. Frank Lautenberg cannot stand Cory Booker, and it must have galled him to have to throw in the towel earlier than maybe he would have liked to. I may be alone here, but I don't think that he'll just focus on the next 2 years. I think he'll do whatever he can. I know he's close to Pallone. I know a lot of other Democrats in New Jersey are still tweaked at Booker. He's still the leader in the clubhouse, Booker is. He's got a lot of money and everything else. But Newark doesn't help him for the next year and change here. I think this thing could get competitive. I'm not sure we've seen the name yet that'll challenge him, but you don't buy it.
No, I mean, I don't. I think that Booker is one of those, extraordinary politicians who can raise money, and can get support outside of the machine. And I think that Booker is going to not have a tough primary here. But I think what the real crisis is between Pope Benedict and Senator Lautenberg. What about these 89-year-olds, refusing to work? Unbelievable.
Sitting on that line.
That's good. That's good. Just waiting on the train with that one.
Republicans, they must be watching this in Jersey, but at the same time saying we still don't have somebody to run against them. I mean, with all due respect to State Senator Tom Kaine, he'd be a prohibitive underdog here. They don't really
His
have
father would be an underdog. Tom Kaine Sr. would be an underdog.
I don't know.
Their best shot, and I don't know who their shot would be at this point, but it's going to have to be somebody that's probably self-financed. And a guy like Cory Booker, yeah, he can rise above because people like Ryan here can elevate you past the party and get crowdsourcing and get people more involved. Listen, if you can spend the money, you can go above the Democrat and Republican machines, and Cory Booker is going to have somebody on the Republican side that can go against that.
I know, Andrew, you think 14 months is a lifetime, and maybe you're right in politics. It's a little bit shorter, obviously, for the primary, but nobody likes anybody who picks on kids or the elderly, right? And it still doesn't look good for Booker that he was seen as pushing a guy before he was ready to go.
But I don't think that's going to be on a lot of people's minds going forward as you reach primary day. I think people are going to be focused on the issues and the personalities, and even concerns about the city of Newark. I think he's going to get a little bit of a pass because most people in New Jersey, they take the approach, it's Newark and it's kind of better than it was, and Newark's got this terrible history. I mean, I think he gets a little bit of a pass.
But where he was Saint Booker not long ago, and everybody...
He rescued somebody from a fire.
I know that.
He's going to rescue an elderly person from going off the cliff, I promise you.
But
it's all going to change.
But I'm telling you, people think of him, a lot of people think of him, I can even tell you in Democratic circles, that he's a show pony, that he always manages to make sure he's the first one to tweet out every time he does something, and people are looking to knock him down. It's the American way. You build somebody up, you want to tear him down even faster. There's a sentiment out there. It hasn't reflected in the polls, I grant you, but there's a sentiment out there that they wouldn't mind seeing Booker knock down a peg or two, especially if you hear even Lautenberg saying it, saying, oh, it's a miracle he decided to show up in Newark today where he's the mayor. There's a lot of sense here that he's forsaken his city.
But if self-congratulating and and promoting yourself was really a big deal, nobody would be following Lady Gaga. Nobody would be like that's what everybody does. That's what all these, pop and media stars do these days. Mayor Booker may be the leading edge of another.
But even think about last night. What did we talk about? We talked about how Booker, with the I think legitimate, but a lot of people thought manufactured the anger towards the general public for Newark, that somebody in broad daylight was getting whipped instead of saying, my city, I've got to do a better job of policing so this couldn't happen.
Which is a fair point, and maybe he shouldn't have slammed his fist on the podium during that press conference, but what has Frank Pallone done that most people are going to know? What has Rush Holt done that most people are going to know? What has, Bill Pascrell done that most people are going to know? He's still got the advantage of the name recognition and that personality and that accessibility. Yeah, he's got more negatives on him, but that's only because people know more about him.
Yeah, people don't care. I mean, they're not going to remember this. This is inside baseball stuff. At the end of the day, he's a good-looking guy. He can raise a lot of money. And
Make a note here. Ryan just summed up the 6-minute segment. People don't care.
They cared enough to watch this segment.
Enough here that I need to move on because Ryan said I've just wasted everyone's time. I kid because I care. All right. Keep the conversation going online. If you care, unlike Ryan says, go to Facebook right now and Twitter, sound off. Did Booker jump the gun here? I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Wrong person. Did he hurt himself and his political future here by really pushing Lautenberg before Lautenberg was ready to go? When we come back, we're going to get into 3 really interesting political questions from around our region and even beyond. We come back. Everything from the Nassau County exec race here to the race for the White House in 2016. Could we see the first Jewish candidate here with a realistic shot to win the presidency? We'll get into that and more after this.